to her readers that someday soon this hierarchy would step out of the shadows and reveal itself. This is what she wrote. The three main channels through which the preparation is going on might be regarded as the church, the Masonic fraternity, and the educational field. Notice there is no mention of the Jews having any role in this conspiracy. This quotation comes from one of the leading supporters of this Luciferian conspiracy, and she doesn't mention the Jews as being one of the major controllers of it. She went on, the Masonic movement will meet the need of those who can and should wield power. Notice once again, it is not the Jews, it is the Masons who will yield the power. And I would say that if anyone knew who was in charge, it was Mrs. Bailey. Manly P. Hall, perhaps the greatest writer in the world in support of this Luciferian conspiracy, wrote that a group called the Order of the Quest came to America at the same time as the Christians, meaning the Pilgrims and the Puritans. And it was this loosely organized conspiracy that set this nation on a course of delivering the Novus Ordo Seclorum, a new world order, to the world. Hall was the major source of details as to what the symbols on the back of the American dollar mean. For instance, he points out that America was not named after Amerigo Vespucci, as is commonly taught by those who write the accidental school of history, but it was named after Amaru, a Peruvian sun god, and that the worship of this sun god conceals a worship of Lucifer, also called Satan or the devil. In fact, Mr. Hall states that America may well mean land of Lucifer. 44 years of my research has forced me to conclude that our founding fathers were also members of the ancient mystery religion, the one that secretly worships Lucifer, the sun god, that is 6,000 years old. And that they did indeed set this nation on a course that Mr. Hall wrote about in his book entitled The Secret Destiny of America. As I have said, my research of 44 years has proven that this conspiracy is ruled by Lucifer, another name of Satan or the devil, by a group known as the Great White Brotherhood, and there appear to be 9 of these leaders, and that they have their headquarters in the nation known as Tibet. This is Charles W. Leadbeater, one of the writers in favor of this view of man's relationship to his God. He wrote a book entitled Freemasonry and its Ancient Mystic Rite, in which he wrote this on page 9. Masonry is a direct descendant of the mysteries of Egypt. So this writer is declaring that this conspiracy predates the Jews. And this quote comes from page 27. Behind the whole system of Masonic initiation was and is the Great Lodge, the Great White Lodge itself. So it is the Great White Brotherhood that controls the Masons. And he reported that this group had its headquarters not in Tibet, not in Israel, not in the United States, not in Europe, nor inside the United Nations. So he is saying that the Masons, who are to wield the power, are controlled by the Great White Brotherhood, a group that is as old as the Egyptian mysteries, predating the Jews themselves by several thousand years. My research into the Great White Brotherhood is preliminary, but it appears as if this is the controlling group for the entire conspiracy. In other words, the Great White Brotherhood is the top player in this enormous worldwide conspiracy. Of course, that means the Jews are not the controlling group for this conspiracy. One of the reasons I believe this is because the Masons who designed the Great Seal of the United States drew an eagle in the front side of the seal. The eagle that they designed is not a real eagle or a drawing of a real eagle. It is a drawing of a bird that resembles a real eagle. And the way you can know that is first by counting the numbers of feathers in the wings. This eagle has 32 feathers in its left wing and 33 in its right. No real eagle has an unequal count of feathers in its wings. And it is not a coincidence that the Masons have 32 degrees and then an honorary 33rd degree in their lodges. And the tail of the eagle, in the tail, there are 9 tail feathers. A real eagle has 11. In the large birds, the tail feathers control the flight of the bird. So symbolically, the Masons are saying that the 9 tail feathers control the flight of the American eagle. And there are 9 individuals in the Great White Brotherhood. And the Great White Brotherhood has run this conspiracy for over 6,000 years. I would like now to show you one more evidence that the Masons worship Lucifer, their god, in their temples. This is an article that appeared in the December 1988 New Age magazine, published by the 33rd Degree Council in Washington, D.C. The article is entitled, "On the Ring of the 14th Degree." Now, before I explain what this ring is and what it is for, I would like to show you the importance of the 14th degree. The Scottish Rite of Freemasonry is one that controls all of the other Masonic lodges worldwide, and it starts at the bottom with what they call the Blue Lodge, consisting of 3 degrees. The Mason may stop here after he completes the 3rd degree, but if he wishes to go on, he may do so. There are 29 more degrees for a total of 32. And then there is a 33rd degree on top, but that is honorary, meaning the Mason cannot become a 33rd degree Mason unless he is invited into it. Now let me briefly explain what befalls the Mason as he goes through the initiation rituals. In the 1st degree of the Blue Lodge, the initiate is brought to the officer in charge, the equivalent of their president, by the vice president, and the president asks the vice president, "What do you seek for this initiate?" And the vice president answers, "Light." During the 2nd degree, the scene is repeated, and the vice president answers, "More light," to the same question. And during the 3rd degree, it is repeated for the 3rd time, and the vice president answers for the initiate, "Further light." Now there is no explanation at this time as to what this word light means. But near the end of the 3rd degree, the initiate is told, quote, "The true knowledge of the deity is the light of which the Mason travels in search." Notice that the initiate was just told that the Mason does not learn the true knowledge of the deity in the Bible or in his church or synagogue. He learns it in the Masonic Lodge. Now if the Mason decides he wants to go on to the 32nd degree, he obviously has to advance 1 degree at a time through the 14th degree. And after he completes the 14th degree, he used to be given a copy of Albert Pike's book entitled Morals and Dogma, and he was encouraged to read it. It becomes appropriate now to discuss who this man Albert Pike was. He was the Sovereign Grand Commander of the Masonic Scottish Rite and held that position from 1859 to 1891. That means he was the leader of the entire Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. This is a statue of him that stands in Washington, D.C. that was erected by the 33rd Degree Council in that city. And the plaque that sits on the ground at the foot of the statue reads, "To the loving memory of Albert Pike, leader of the worldwide Masonic movement." So when this Mason speaks, he speaks for the entire Masonic movement worldwide. And if a Mason read his book, he would know that these are the official thoughts of the worldwide Masonic Lodge. And he would read one chapter on each of the 32 degrees inside the book. And this is in the explanation of the 19th degree on page 321. The Mason would read, "Lucifer, the light bearer, is it he who bears the light? Doubt it not." So here the initiate reads where Lucifer, also called Satan or the devil, brings the light that he is seeking. But before I go on, let me read you a quote taken from the ritual of the 14th degree. "It is for each Mason to discover the secret of Masonry by reflecting upon what is done in the work." So the Mason has been taught that there is but one secret. And I will now like to show you what that secret is, and that it is revealed in the 19th degree. We're going to take three different statements and see if we can reflect upon the words to draw some conclusions. The first one is that the Mason asks for light.